welcome, hello, good morning, good afternoon, actually. It's actually almost evening. I should say good evening. Or I could just go with the Truman Show. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Or, I can't even remember how that goes. It's been so long. I am doing some live content right now, though, guys. It is, granted, a replay, but it's with one of these dudes that I'm going to be doing some 2v2s with in a moment's time. So, as soon as he's ready to rock and roll, we'll just do some replay casting until he's good to go. Maybe we'll play some early games. You guys watch would be awful to warm up. I don't know. But let's hop into this, shall we? Spawning here in the bottom left corner from the Korean ladder, it's going to be the blue Protoss player, Axiom's Crank. And his opponent, over yonder, a pretty famous dude, if I do say so myself. It's going to be the Red Zerg player, Nestea, who actually, if you guys recently were watching Rotterdam, played a show match versus Hendrilisk, again cast by Rotterdam. It was a pretty fun time. I really don't know what we were expecting for that match. Hendrilisk did manage to take a game off an ST, but ST kind of showed us he's still in pretty much great form, not faltering too much. And as we close bets here, it looks like we got, actually, I wouldn't say too crazy of bets. About 2,565 placed on Crank, and, well... with a proxy hatchery coming down on Overgrowth, who's surprised? Nestea actually the underdog in this, though, with barely 1,500. So we'll see which of these two guys comes out ahead and who's going to make bank with the Partoofs. Now, we've noticed Crank has actually chosen to pull multiple probes to deal with this. The amount of probes he has right now is actually just barely enough to keep the hatchery from really gaining a lot of health. In fact, I think it's 7 to kill it, 6 to just keep it from growing full. It's not at all unsurprising to see this, because the tactic that follows this up is usually canceling this, and then on the small patch of creep that's like right here, you quickly build an Evo chamber. And the idea is, on one hand, Crank is losing a lot of mind tap. Look at this income difference. Every minute that passes, that's 200 less minerals Crank has than his opponents. And as Nestea loses maybe 81 minerals to do this, he's going to keep doing this over and over and over again, because he wants to make sure Crank doesn't get a natural base down anytime soon. Now, with all these probes, again, playing right around the rosy, Crank's got to make sure he also blocks out where the hatchery could possibly come down. So I like this one probe segmented off to the side, but he does get the Nexus, and oh my goodness, the kill! Oh, I don't have first blood still. Someone remind me to go set this up. But behind this, a very greedy play out of Nestea when you consider he actually didn't go 3 hatch before pool, but 4 hatch before pool. Now, I think it was true versus Stork. We saw a similar instance of before, but of course back then Stork had a much more difficult time dealing with this. I guess we'll call it shenanigans. It's not really cheese. It's not really anything that's gonna get too much done. But Crank picking off that drone was a nice how do you do for making that up for all that lost mining time. So at the end of the day, Nestea still, I don't know you can really say he comes out ahead, but not exactly in a bad spot. Crank, by the way, because he did go for the gateway expand and not a forge, there's no chance to do cannons behind this, which would have been kind of a fun retaliation, I think, considering how late the spawning pool is coming down. But it's a really hard, it's really hard to assume your opponent's going to go 3 hatch before pool behind this. I mean, you see the 1 hatchery come down, you see the proxy, you expect it, the block, it's there. It's just part of this matchup, especially on maps like Overgrowth. Overgrowth itself is very interesting, by the way. I'll tell you guys, if you want to sound really impressive to your friends watching StarCraft 2, if you want to be like pro commentator status, if you see PvZ on this map, call that there might be a hatchery block if you see a drone scout early. If it's a Terran, call it 2 racks, because, like, let's be honest, flip a coin, it's probably a 2 racks versus Zerg on this map. There's a lot of funny things that happen as a, as, you know, cheese, you go by a player-by-player basis, but this is one of those maps where we do see silly stuff like this come down more often. But following this up with the Stargate here is Crank, and the question is going to be Oracle versus Phoenix. I want to say Oracle. Everybody seems to be enjoying the Oracle. We're seeing a lot better use out of it lately. It's really weird to me that it took about 5 months before players realized how to properly use the Oracle, but Crank is a player who I've seen in the late game. He strives in the late game. I wouldn't be too shocked if this was Phoenix, because if you go Phoenix, it baits out the Hydralisks. You go Colossus, it's, oh, wait, there you go, nailed it. It's the way this matchup tends to play out. You want a macro game on Overgrowth as a Protoss player, because once you've got those Colossus in play, maintaining a 3rd base, abusing your opponent's 3rd, recalling back home to defend, stopping base trades, I mean, these are all things that you can excel at with good control. And Crank, it's worth noting, has some really good control when it comes to this matchup. In fact, there was an Acer Team Story Cup match I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but there's an Acer Team Story Cap match that Crank very specifically played PvZ on, and we got to see some really cool like Warp Prism Micro. Then like another day, we got to see like that late game Colossus play. So while we haven't exactly seen Nestea cropping up in things like the Acer Team Story Cup or Zotac Cups or go for StarCrafts, we have seen Crank kind of meandering about in things like the Alima League and whatnot. So have definitely seen a lot more of his play stylings in recent days. See chat dropping a reference to Minigun. Actually, it's funny. We cast not too long ago. There was a Minigun versus Betrayus show match, and on Overgrowth, Minigun went like straight up carriers, guys. If you missed that, the VODs are available. But like he straight up just went carriers Sky Toss. It was like a 40-minute game. I'm not gonna spoil it because the whole show match itself had a really dumb conclusion, but. There was some pretty funny stuff that happened. Minigun's a fun guy to watch. I love watching his stream too, because he doesn't shy away from doing weird tactics like that either when streaming. But anyways, looking for the Overlords for the time being, not diving directly to the drones. You guys will note Crank did stop Phoenix production. Oh no, it does pick it up again. I was gonna say 4 and 3 is like kind of a bluff. If you go for 5, this is when you're really trying to make sure your opponent goes Hydralisks, and with Nestea going for the range upgrades, it seems to be the case. Now there's a really big power shift in this matchup. One of the big things right now you'll notice is Crank is going to expend a lot of energy killing queens and drones. This is really good for Nestea. Not because he's losing queens and drones, but because it tells him that, oh, Crank's actually not gearing up to do like a 5-gate, 6-gate behind this. Because if you save that energy, if you're not picking up drones, that means you're planning to pick up things like roaches and Zerglings and Hydralisks. But having exhausted his energy, Nestea knows there's not really going to be a gateway follow-up. So still goes for the Lings, but these are more because the Phoenix can't pick them all up. This will give him a chance to counterattack and possibly go for the 3rd. What he really needs to do, of course, is just keep Crank distracted while he gets Hydralisk out safely. Now, once Hydralisk come out, there's still that shift in the favor of Crank, where Colossus just beat out Hydralisk so hardcore, it's not even funny. But once you get Hive Tech, and once you get Vipers, Abducts come into the play, and suddenly Nestea's the one with all the power in the game. That's when Crank has to start looking towards things like Warp Prisms and other avenues of attack that bit of a move commander with the Lings. Do waste quite a few of them here, but the Zella will clean this up. There's no cannon behind the satellite, but there's a cannon here at the 3rd. Plus a photon overcharge if necessary. Maybe a bit of drones or probe stacking, but really, Crank is not too worried about this attack. In the meantime, these Hydras have started hatching. These Phoenix have got to get out of dodge. They can pick them up in small amounts. If they spawn, you pick them up and grab them 1 at a time, 2 at a time, here and there. And the Phoenixes actually have enough damage to deal with them quite nicely. But Crank has already got this number coming his way. He's got to be careful. Colossus is not quite out yet. You're going to chrono out that extended thermal lance. I like this a lot. A lot of the times, too, this is really undervalued. With Groove Spines upgrades on the Hydralisk, without extended thermal lance, the Colossus have the same range as the Hydralisk, so they can't safely shell away from afar. But if you want that Protoss Siege tank, you got to get that upgrade done. Now, there's still one more overcharge available. The problem is, where does Crank use this? Because he obviously wants to use it here at the natural if he can, but this might just send Nestea over to the 3rd, so has to back up a little bit, tries to keep the Colossus alive. If he deals with the Lings, he can then deal with the Hydralisk, but that's a big step 1, step 2 type thing. Phoenixes can still get involved with the fight. Make no mistake, the overcharge does go off, and these Phoenix need to help save this Colossus. It is starting to go down. It does fall. Probes are full, and Crank realizes, oh, I've got Phoenixes. I forgot. But it looks like he is going to hold on to this. He takes a couple drone losses, probe losses rather, not the end of the world. The fact that he killed those Hydras, though, you guys have to look at the resources lost. For Nestea, that was a huge investment in an attack that could have otherwise gone to the 3rd, but oh wow, Crank, I didn't even realize, puts not 1 but 2 but 4 cannons down here at the 3rd base. This will be really good versus Ling run buys. It's obviously not going to stop a ton of Hydralisks, but there are no longer a ton of Hydralisks to worry about, so a bit of a deep breath of revelation, I guess. What is this Queen doing here, though? This is my watchtower, okay, whatever. Worst Queen voice ever. I was going for a much sort of voice, but my throat hurts too much, so apparently I'm not doing that today. But Crank, comfortably on 3 bases, now has extended thermal lance for that Colossus. Still not a great position, but he can still force funnels and chokes here. If he loses the Cyber Core, that's certainly going to hurt quite a bit, but not really worried about that, because right now he's across the map picking up drones, trying to nail away here the Queens, do what he can, where he can. I had to move away from the support focus a little bit late for that, but still, he'll get a Queen kill, which is quite nice. Didn't know what was coming out of his eggs. I think he thought they were Hydras, and they were just drones, however. And back on Crank's side of the map, Nestea, he's trying to push in, but I mean, really, with the cannons at the 3rd and the low amount of Hydralisks, he's not going to bust this anytime soon. I mean, you never see Protoss players invest this heavily into the static D, but between what is almost a photon overcharge, what is a lot of cannons and a lot of units, Crank's 3rd and natural are pretty well regarded. Nestea, of course, is going to have to think about that Spire, which is on the way. He's opted to do this over an Infestation Pit, which means he's not moving to Hive Tech. He's not getting Vipers, but most likely going to invest in Corruptors. Now, Corruptors are the first wave to deal with combination Phoenixes as well as this Colossus, and that's fine. But one of the scariest things you can worry about in StarCraft 2 is a Mutalisk transition. It doesn't matter what race you are. PvZ, PvT, or sorry, ZVT, ZVZ, it doesn't matter. You gotta worry about that Mutalisk transition at some point in the game. Now, Crank should be able to scout this. Although he's doing still a lot of damage here. Picking up these drones might not seem like a big deal, but he's picking up very specifically the gas mining ones. So things like Corruptors, things like Mutalisks, these very gas expensive transition units are not going to be so easy to make if he's constantly missing workers, and he is still only just barely saturated that gas geyser. So, good choices here out of Crank so far. Double hatcheries down, one for macro, and of course a gold base up and running. Does Crank know about this gold? Ooh, this is a bit of a problem. Not realizing the gold base is down is a big detriment. Not because it's not like he's going to storm across the map and kill it, but you have to realize, like, oh man, I've got to get my production maxed out. I got to get that attack going, or I got to take another base myself. So he gets over here to see this up, pick up a drone or two, but I mean, this really isn't anything too crazy. Is this a show match? No, guys, it's not a show match. I'm just casting some replays I got while Crank gets ready to play some 2v2s. He's doing some stuff in real life, so he sends out sub replay packs. I've got a couple from Target and to Muslim as well. I don't know how long he'll be, but I figured, you know what? We'll just cast some good games while we wait, and I can use it for YouTube content. 2 birds, 1 stone. Nailed it. But, yeah, Stalker in the middle of the map actually blinks away. He gets some friends to blink forward. Oh man, that's like classic chase a guy down the alleyway and find out he's got like a whole gang waiting for you at the end of it. But yeah, Phoenix is still alive this game. I gotta tell you, usually these die off at this point. They've awkwardly flown over top of a Hydralisk clump or something, but hallucinating the Colossus on the front lines, these might soak some hits. There's one observer, sorry, overseer the army, but this looks to be a little too powerful to Crank. He's got level weapon upgrades on his side. Why are the upgrades showing down here? What the heck? Okay, we'll talk about that later. Because right now, Nestea is in a lot of trouble. The Hydralisks have gone down. They haven't done a whole lot of much. The Corruptors take out the Colossus, sure, but he's got to deal with the Stalker count behind us. And there's just way too much. This is one of those situations where I think Viper's would have been a much better choice. GG is going to be called. Crank will take the game. But while he kills everything here, I mean, the reason Vipers are better in this scenario, guys, not only do you get the benefit of Blinding Cloud for the Stalkers, he can abduct the Colossus. I mean, there's a million times better than I think what he was going for there. But Crank takes that pretty nicely at the end. So, GG's.